Hey everybody, welcome to the Combatcast. It's the man they call Dave. It's Chevy, and Chevy, we got a brand new sponsor, Game Up. Tell them about it.
That's right. Game Up is now sponsoring the podcast here, the whole channel, Working Fans channel. So it's a thirst quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Comes in 4 flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. All are delicious.
That's right. It's a low carb drink, full flavor with only 110 calories per can.
Yeah, we're glad to be getting the support from Game Up here at the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Game Up. Chevy, now let's tell people what we got coming up.
All right, February 23rd, UFC Fight Night, Moreno versus Royval 2 from Mexico. And also we're going to talk a little bit about the PFL versus Bellator Champs card that's going to be happening. And then March 1st, terrible Apex Fight Night, UFC Fight Night, Rosenstruck versus Gadzeev, which I think is Shamil. I'm not actually sure who this fighter is. But moving on from there, we're right back in the thick of it. March 8th, UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera 2, which is a super stacked card. And then we're also going to be talking about Francis versus Joshua. Looking forward to that fight as well.
Absolutely. Now that is some good stuff coming up. And we got some really good stuff coming up this weekend. But before we do, I didn't get a chance to see it. Why don't we just hit this up here? What did you think of the main event from this past weekend's fight night?
Well, the main event, I talked up the hype for Joe Pyfer, and I'm pulling back on that hype a little bit after this performance. It wasn't a terrible performance. Yes, I thought that Jack was not going to be able to withstand his power. He did, obviously, but what was concerning was Joe's inability to make adjustments to the fight after that. So he couldn't land the takedowns because Jack is a well-rounded fighter. He did very well, but Jack's boxing was great too. And Joe just ended up standing and staring and trying to counter and land one big shot. And Jack just kept jabbing him over and over again. And Joe couldn't time it. It was not a good showing for him. He did pretty well in the beginning of the fight, but Jack's experience came through at the end.
And what about the co-main event, Ige and Andre Touchy-Feely?
I didn't realize this. The commentary team talked about it, but they are training partners or have trained together and are relatively friendly. So when Andre Feely decided he wanted to step in on this short notice fight, I guess it offended Dan. They're talking about Andre must have seen something in sparring where he thought he had Dan's number or something. But obviously when you're sparring and training, you're pulling punches. And Dan put that on display. He landed a very flush right hand that put Andre down, and then a very hard follow-up that bounced his head off the canvas. Put a stamp on it. So shout out to Ige. He's a beast, back in the win column, looking good.
Yeah, that's right. Congratulations to Ige. And so, not a good week. We did not get these predictions right this week. That happens. It's MMA. MMA is wild. Mm-hmm. But we'll go back and we'll try it again this week with this sweet card. UFC. What is this, Joseph? You bastard.
Yeah, that's not it.
All right. Well, it's UFC 298. Not 293. I'm going to show that one more time when Joe sees this. Love you, Joe. Stuff happens. It's a big
happy birthday. He's slacking today. Joe. Yeah.
And he did help get this sponsor. So congratulations, Joe. Mistake was made. That's the first time, too. So Lord knows I've opened up the wrong studio. We all had mistakes. So
yeah.
All good. Oh, but I threw me. I'm looking at like, wait, Adesanya? Damn, what card am I taking notes for here? All right, well, UFC 298, Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Before we get to the main card, any fights you want to point out here?
Yeah, first fight on the early prelims is Angela Lee versus Miranda Maverick. That's a great matchup. Also on the prelims, Marco Rogerio de Lima versus Justin Taffa, two big heavyweights. Somebody's going to sleep in that one for sure. I love that fight. I'm really looking forward to that one. And then the featured bout on the prelims, Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. I think Mackenzie is number 7 and Lemos is number 3. So top of the featherweight division. I'm sorry, flyweight division.
Yeah, I had missed Dern was on this card too. Excellent. All right.
Let's get into this main card. I'm so excited for this entire main card, top to bottom, which I haven't been in quite some time. The UFC is finally back, baby. Let's go. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov.
All right, Fluffy Hernandez. We love that nickname. He's 11-2. He's got 2 KO, 7 subs, and 2 decision. He's won 4 straight. Roman is 12-2, 11 KOs, 1 decision, 4-2 in the UFC. He lost his first 2, and then he's won his last 4. All finishes. So I liked it that they have similar records. I liked that Hernandez is more of a sub guy when you look at these stats, and Roman is definitely more of a KO guy with no subs and only 1 decision. I like that Roman has been on this hot streak after 2 losses that he turns it around, and now he's got 4 finishes. I find it to be very interesting. I'm going to go with Hernandez, though. I'm going to say Hernandez, good chin, survives this, and if he survives the power of Roman, maybe. And I'll say he'll pull out a sub. I think we're going to get a finish either way. I'll go with round 2, Hernandez by submission.
Yeah, this is a great fight to start this card off with. I expect to see some excellent striking, and either guy can land a KO shot. I know that Fluffy doesn't have a lot of KOs on his record, but I think he knocks a lot of guys down and then jumps on submissions. But in the striking, I do give Kopylov the edge for sure. His brutal body shots teamed up with Hernandez has a long torso and he stands tall. That kind of leaves him open to those body shots. So definitely give Roman the edge there. But if it goes to the ground or the clinch, I give the edge to Fluffy. He's so good with his long limbs, snatching onto those submissions and scrambles and stuff like that. Excuse me. It's tough to call, but I'm with you. I think I'm going to go with a submission from Hernandez. I'll say it makes it to round 3.
All right. I like it. And all right, this second fight on the main card.
I know. I can't believe it's so early on this card. That shows how stacked this card is. But Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo.
All right, Merab, let's get to the stats first. 16-4, 3 KOs, 1 subs, 12 decision, 9 fight win streak. All right. There's a guy, I think he lost his I didn't put this down, but I think he lost his first 2 fights, like very close fights. Arguably could have won. There was one fight where can't remember if they called it a submission. Where
Ricky Simone, yeah, he had him in the guillotine or whatever, and Merab was moving his legs still, and they said he was out, but he didn't seem like he was out when he let go.
No, it was kind of funny looking back at it because Merab is kind of a weird dude in some ways, and you can just see the way Merab's moving. I can almost see why they thought that, but if you really know Merab's like, oh, he's just making sure to show his legs. He probably has that spot. Yeah. But Merab, like I said, 16-4, 9 fight winning streak. He dominates people, folks. Like he just ragdolls people. But Henry Cejudo, 16-3, 8 KOs, 8 decision, 2 weight class champ, former Olympian and gold medalist in wrestling. Okay. He's not, I mean, I don't want to say he's not going to ragdoll Henry, but it's a tall task to ragdoll an Olympic wrestler. It's a very interesting style matchup in the sense too. And it's also interesting. It's only a 3-round fight.
Yeah, like, that is a bummer. I wish it was 5 rounds. I'm with you.
Yeah. And it's also like, it's one of the few times that we can talk so glowingly about a fight that we'll probably see go to decision.
Right.
But it's very interesting because I mean, Merab just takes people down and down and down like he did with Jan, right? It was super impressive how he did that. But it was a bad style matchup for Jan. Henry can counter this a little bit. But we've seen Sterling who got the win over Cejudo. Although I would say a very close fight, could have gone either way. But now, Merab and Sterling train so closely together. I have to feel like there's going to be a blueprint. And I don't. All right. So we found out about this today too on the Countdown show. Henry had removed Coach Eric from his camp. Now, personally, when you do things like that on film and stuff like that, I have a feeling Coach Eric kind of knows about it. I feel like it's a little contrived, and I feel like it's just a move. Like there's still
did not look like it if you watch the video.
I
it looked very uncomfortable in the video, but yeah.
Well, okay. Well, either way, because to me, I want to make this point. It doesn't matter either way to me, because what I find when I feel like it's going to be a difference maker is that I hear Henry saying, like, I don't want all that noise in my head, because I watched the Countdown. I want just to get a couple things. That's great. He's an Olympian. He knows what he's doing way more than me. But as a fan who watches this stuff and has to pick a winner, I find that people usually when they're changing coaching right before a competitive fight like this is not an advantage. So I'm going to go with Merab for that reason, and I'm going to pick Merab by decision.
Yeah, Henry may be the greatest combat athlete of all time, but at 37 in the bantamweight division, I think it's a tough road for him anywhere. And Merab is in his prime, and he has the same coaches as Sterling, like you mentioned, who just recently beat Henry. So they have a blueprint. Although they're not the same fighter, they both can wrestle and, pursue takedowns relentlessly. So the wrestling is going to be key. Basically, can Henry stop Merab's relentless takedowns and land some shots on him standing? If so, I think he can get a win. But and if anyone can do that, it would be Henry. But I just think at this point in his career, and Merab at this point in his career, it's just going to be Merab's night. I think he just kind of wears him down. I'm with you, though. Decision victory. I think I'm going to go with Merab by decision. And we'd probably see Henry retire again, and this will probably be the last time.
I do want to throw this out, though. And if we're going to see a finish, I'm leaning towards Cejudo to get the finish.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And also, the fact that Merab and Aljo have the same coaches, nobody makes adjustments better, maybe outside of DJ, than Henry. And they train together very closely as well, DJ and Henry. So if he's going to make adjustments to that fight against Sterling and implement them against Merab, he has a much better chance. So it's a very interesting fight. But I'm going to pick Merab due to age mostly.
Yeah. I want coaching. Age is a great point too, and I just will say this too. I think it's like Chevy said, Henry loses. If he loses, he retires. I agree with that settlement, but it's a real crossroads fight. I could see Cejudo winning this, and when I say crossroads, this is what I honestly picture, especially if Sean O'Malley ends up beating Cheeto on the next pay-per-view. Cejudo and Cheeto, good chance that's going to be the following up fight because that'll have the most steam. But if Henry loses, he probably retires. So real pressure cooker rather. And I will just say this too. I'm going to talk myself out of this, but I'm not going to. It's those kind of situations though, where normally Henry would shine and he prevails. But like,
right, he does have a very special mentality, and this would be the time for that to be showcased for sure.
But I'm gonna be with you. It's a pick 'em. We're gonna lean towards Merab. All right.
Yeah. Also, Merab, one of the best Twitters in the world. Yes. If you don't follow Merab on Twitter, please do yourself fair. He's hilarious. All right, let's move on. Geoff Neal versus Ian Machado Garry.
All right, Machado is 13-0, 7 KOs, 1 sub, 5 decision. Geoff Neal 15-5, 9-2. 9 KOs, 2 subs, 4 decisions. Wins over Nico Price, Mike Perry, Vicente Luque, Santiago Ponzinibbio. And he's lost to guys like Wonder Boy. My point is, I got a lot more here. Garry is coming up. He had a real impressive win over Neil Magny last time too, which the way he beat Neil and what we've seen from Neil lately in his last performance, especially too, that's a very big win. but I just feel like Neal has had more of a strength of competition. So this is a really great test for Ian, and I feel like Geoff is more explosive than Neal Magny and some of these people like Geoff. So he's got that ability, I believe, to stop Ian if Ian's head is not screwed on straight. Now, the last time we thought Ian was going to fight and he got sick, I remember I smelled upset because it was just a lot of stuff going in to that fight. I think that might have been a blessing in disguise. Now he's had a chance to step away. This guy I do think is mentally strong. And, now having that clear head, I'm going to pick Ian Garry going into this. I don't know if he'll get the finish. Geoff Neal is tough. But I'll say Ian Garry gets the win by decision.
Yeah, Geoff Neal is a top-level fighter, but stylistically, he's tailor-made for Ian Garry, I think, with their style matchup. So I know that Ian also got in his head a bit with that mugshot T-shirt that he was wearing because this, he was, trying to get this fight beforehand before he lined up the Luque fight. So I think that got into Geoff's head a little bit. So might make him a little bit emotional coming out, which could work against him, but also could work in his favor because I think his path to victory in here is to blitz in and catch Ian while he's like trying to circle out with something, and he has to land something heavy and wobble him and then, jump on him there. Because if he gets into just a kickboxing match, which I think this is mostly going to be, I do think while Geoff is a very good kickboxer, Ian is longer and better. So I think he just kind of snipes him for 3 rounds and we end up getting a decision. So I'm gonna go with Garry by decision.
Yeah, so we're in agreement here. We're in agreement so far. Let's see about this next one here.
Yeah, co-main event, Robert Whitaker versus Paulo Costa.
So this is an interesting one, dude. Paulo Costa, 14-2, 11 KOs, 1 sub, 2 decisions. He's 6-2 in the UFC. Only losses to the best. All right. Marvin Vettori, one of the arguably top 3, top 4 middleweights in the world, and Stylebender, the former champ. All right. Where Stylebender actually stopped him. Now, Robert Whitaker, 24-7, 9 KOs, 5 subs, 10 decisions, former middleweight champ, was the Ultimate Fighter on the Australian. Yeah, Australian. We'll say that. Smashes. And this guy's a constant. Robert Whitaker has been a constant, with the exception of Stylebender. Nobody had really had his number until recently, the last fight with DDP. And I feel like similar to Cejudo. I'd have to say that if Whitaker loses this, it's a crossroads fight. He's going to retire, but I do feel like this could be a downward trajectory for Whitaker, or he's going to have to regroup after this. Last time it could have been very simple. The DDP could have just caught him. However, Paulo Costa, you talk about someone who can catch you. Paulo Costa. This guy's one of the hardest hitting middleweights there is. It's another fight where I could really see an upset here. That being said, I'm not ready to throw the towel yet on Robert Whitaker. Robert Whitaker to me is a constant. I'm going to say he gets it done. I'm going to say he bounces back. I think he's going to want to put a stamp on this too. I say it'll be the later rounds because you're going to have to weather some storm with Paulo Costa a little bit. But I'll say round 3, Robert Whitaker scores the TKO.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced that Costa makes it into the octagon because I won't be until he after he weighs in. But if he does, I think that Bobby Knuckles looks like a vintage version of himself and he punishes Costa. I think he was embarrassed by that loss to Dricus. And he wants to be at that top level again. And I think we see him at that top level. I think he also knows that the loser of this fight probably going down to the bottom of the queue and the winner still in contention for, a title shot. So I think we see the best of Robert we've seen in a while. I'm going to pick him by TKO in round 2. I think he mentally breaks Costa, frustrates him. and we see kind of a Derek Lewis-esque shell up, and ref calls it, and then Costa will be all upset that the ref called it off, saying, "No, I'm fine."
I like it. Very exact.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the main event. I'm incredibly excited for this one. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria.
Topuria 14-0. All right, undefeated. 4 KOs, 8 subs, 2 decisions, 6-0 in the UFC. Coming off a clinic he put on Josh Emmett, where it was super impressive. Volkanovski, though, 26-3, 13 KOs, 3 subs, 10 decision. Only losses in UFC to lightweight champ Islam Makhachev. Those are very
pound for pound number one, because John Jones isn't even really a fighter.
Last fight he took was on short notice where he got caught. But the only thing about those losses is they're the last 2 fights he had. Mm-hmm. All right. And he just got finished. So it's a difficult time for Volk, because in terms of your confidence as a fighter, you're coming off your first 2 losses in a long time. But we've seen how Volk, he lost early in his career and then went on an incredible winning streak. So I don't think that's a problem. Got taken out with that KO, though. I don't think it's a problem, because I was watching that countdown special, and when he talks about, like, we could just assume, I'm going to go in there and be the top featherweight, and, I've fought at lightweight now, I can handle these guys. He's like, that mentality wouldn't serve me well, though. He's like, I still got to go in. If I take that, then I don't do what I do in the gym. And just the way he talks, I'm like, this guy, he gets it still. He's still ready to put a ton of work in. That whole city kickboxing gym, I'm sure, they just, the only problem I think they have, like guys like him and Adesanya now, is they've been winning for so long. There's a lot of film on them. So when you have these other great coaching, they can start to put together. That being said, a lot of great film on this guy right now. And Topuria is a guy who's continuing to get better. Topuria is a guy, I think, at some point, he's probably going to be a champ. He's that good. But will this be the night? I say no. I say Volkanovski gets it done. And I'm even going to go so far as to say he'll get a finish a little later, round 4. TKO. Maybe even taps him out. Rear naked choke. Submits him. Yeah, I'm on submission.
Yeah, Ilia has been talking so much shit. We talked a little bit about it last week, I think, where he's making a movie called like Road to the Belt. He has already changed his like social media bios to be 15-0, and he's the UFC champion, which I understand, like envisioning what you want to happen and all that, but there's a difference between confidence and cockiness. He's also gone so far as to say as Max is not getting a title shot after he wins. Brian Ortega is not getting one. Yair, all these guys, they're not getting title shots, which that drives me crazy. You're not even the champion. You're already saying all these, legends are not going to get shots, which you don't make the calls. But with all that being said, he does have serious fighting skills. He's very well-rounded. He's incredibly powerful. I think he has 0 physical weaknesses, in fact. But I think people already forgot that Volkanovski is the greatest featherweight of all time. It pains me to say that, as we are well aware, Max is my favorite fighter. Similar to Robert Whitaker, I think Volkanovski was embarrassed by his loss, the KO loss, and his lack of discipline going into that. He talked about how, he was drinking every day and not really, staying disciplined in the gym. So I think all that is more motivation to have him primed to be his best version of himself and show that he's still the king of this weight class for sure. I think we're going to see a close first 2 rounds, and then Volkanovski dog walks him for the remaining 3 rounds. I think I'm going to pick Volkanovski just based on his mentality that you referenced. I think he's incredibly mentally strong. He showcased that in the Ortega fight with his refusal to tap to that super deep guillotine. But I'm not convinced that Topuria's mentality is the same. A lot of bluster, but we're going to see if it's true in this fight. So I think you see Volkanovski turn it on about halfway through the fight, and he breaks Ilia at some point. I think we do get probably a decision because Ilia is tough, but I think you're going to see that look on his face where he's like, what have I got myself into? I don't think I can win.
And when you're dealing with elite fighters like this, mentality sometimes is the difference maker, the thought process going into that. And when you talk about Ilia talking about not giving people shots and stuff already, it comes off like a guy who's just a little bit big for his head. Whereas Volk is talking about a guy, I still need to do the work. Mm-hmm. That comes off like a guy who's confident, but is reminding himself how we got here. So, yeah, I agree. I'm even going a little further. Like I said, I think Volk will get the finish, although, it's not going to surprise me to see Ilia go. Like you said, extremely skilled, extremely tough. I'm going to throw you one little curveball here before we hit that new sponsor and go with what's coming up. You talked about Max, all right? And I want to get your opinion on this because Max has this fight coming up with Justin Gaethje. And I was listening to somebody talk about how, I think it was Chael, was talking about how Rogan is not excited about this fight with Justin Gaethje. He doesn't understand why we're doing this fight because we've seen Max come up at lightweight and it didn't work out so well. And when I heard that, to me, I'm like, I don't know what we're talking about because I understand that Max got rocked a few times in that, but that was Max's first venture up to lightweight. He's older now, which you'd say, okay, maybe that's not great, but I think he's always been physically bigger. I think he's maybe more settled in the weight class. And if you look at that fight, like he had technically, got more strikes than Dustin Poirier in that fight. I'm not saying that Max is going to be Justin Gaethje, but I think it's a very intriguing fight.
I think it really comes down to Max's lack of power at lightweight because, yeah, he landed more shots on Dustin. Dustin landed the heavy shots on Max, which obviously we know Max can take it. He has one of the best chins in fighting ever. But he's a volume puncher, and he really just never hurt Dustin, never stunned him, even though he landed shots on him. And we know that Gaethje also has a rock solid chin. Sure. He's, defensively sound with his shell up and everything. And also he just punishes guys. And we know Max can take a lot of punishment, and we don't want to see him take a lot of punishment. So I'm sort of, we'll get into it more when we do the breakdown, but I'm not super excited for this. I hope Max wins. Do I think there's a path to victory? Yes, I do. I think he's going to take a lot of punishment either way, if he wins or if he loses. I don't see him finishing Gaethje necessarily, but he could definitely beat him by decision by just landing so many shots on him. But I don't think he hurts him and knocks him out. It's more likely that we see Max get knocked out for the first time by Gaethje.
We'll see. I know when I put a video up when that fight got announced, a lot of people commented on that we got, and they were saying, "Oh, this is going to be Max's Tony Ferguson now. Like this is going to be the start of like with Justin."
Oh God, I hope not.
Nope, not either. We'll see what happens. All right, tell people we got coming up first.
All right, February 23rd, UFC Fight Night, Moreno versus Royval 2, and we'll also be talking about PFL versus Bellator champs card. And then March 1st, UFC Fight Night, Rosenstruck versus Gaziev. Moving on. March 8th, UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera 2. Super, super stacked card. Even more stacked than this one, I would argue. And then also we'll be talking about Francis and Joshua.
Awesome. And again, great new sponsor, Game Up. What about it, Chevy?
Yeah, we want to thank Game Up for sponsoring the podcast. Game Up is a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes, so you get some hydration with your alcohol. 4.9%. Great flavors. They got fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.
That's right, and it's low carb and only 110 calories per can. And we want to thank them for being our sponsor, and we want to thank you for joining the